Will the K9 police dog save Emily from the mad lover's hold? Emily is trapped in a remote cabin, held hostage by her obsessive ex-lover, Mark, whose twisted mind spirals further into madness. With time running out, Officer Taylor and his loyal K9, Rex, are on a desperate chase through treacherous woods, following a trail of deception and danger. As they close in on Mark, the stakes grow higher. Rex's unyielding instincts and courage are the only hope to stop a deadly plan. Will they reach Emily in time, or will Mark's obsession claim another life? The shrill sound of the cell phone sliced through the silence of the early morning, dragging Officer Taylor from his restless sleep. His hand shot out, fumbling to grab the phone before the ringing woke the entire house. A quick swipe of his thumb silenced the call, but the voice on the other end was already speaking. "Taylor, we have a situation," his superior barked, the urgency in his tone unmistakable. "Emily Summers, the school teacher. She's been kidnapped." His stomach tightened at the mention of her name. Emily was well known in the community. A kind soul, respected by everyone. The thought of her in danger sparked a sense of dread. His mind snapped into gear as his fingers tightened around the phone. Details. Taylor's voice was sharper now, his body already half out of bed. Her ex, Mark Harris. "We believe he took her. Ever since she broke up with him, he's been obsessed. He's been stalking her, sending disturbing messages, showing up uninvited. She recently started seeing someone new, which just made things worse. Her car was found near Old Mill Road abandoned. A witness saw Mark's car around the same time she went missing. You're heading up the search." Now, the line went dead. Taylor was already moving before the call ended, his mind already running through the details. His K9 partner, Rex, padded into the room. Sensing the shift in the air, Taylor slid into his boots, grabbing his gear. Rex's eyes followed his every move with a sharp focus, ready for whatever was coming next. Minutes later, they arrived at the scene. Old Mill Road. The sky above was still dim with the last remnants of night. The abandoned car stood in stark contrast to the quiet surroundings, battered and dirtied. It had clearly been left in haste, the door slightly ajar as though the person who had fled never looked back. Taylor's eyes scanned the area quickly, taking in the details. Nothing about this felt like a random disappearance. "Let's get to work, Rex," Taylor muttered, his voice low but firm. Rex immediately went to work, sniffing the ground around the car. His nose twitched as he began to follow the scent trail, his pace steady and focused. Taylor kept pace, a constant companion to the dog's meticulous work. The trees around them began to close in as they left the open area, the dense forest surrounding them like a thick curtain. The smell of damp earth and wet leaves filled the air, the ground soft under their boots. But something was off. Taylor had been part of enough searches to know when things didn't add up. The scent trail felt too clean, too neat. There were no broken branches, no signs of struggle. As if someone had planned every step carefully, knowing exactly how to hide their tracks. Mark, he was smarter than expected. The thought made Taylor's jaw clench, but there was no time to waste on frustration. "Stay sharp, Rex," Taylor muttered, his hand gripping the leash tighter. The dog continued on, his focus unwavering. The deeper they went into the woods, the more it became clear that this wasn't just a random abduction. Mark had planned for this moment, every movement calculated. False trails began to appear as the forest became more tangled, the scent splitting in multiple directions, as if trying to confuse them. Rex stopped, growling low in his throat, his fur bristled. Taylor immediately scanned the surroundings, his instincts kicking in. They weren't alone. From the corner of his eye, he caught the flicker of movement or shadow in the trees. His body tensed, muscles coiling, but he forced himself to remain still. The last thing they needed was to tip their hand too early. Another crack echoed from the woods, a dry twig snapping underfoot. Mark. He was nearby. Taylor's heartbeat quickened, the tension rising in his chest. He steadied himself, trying to calm his nerves, but the pressure to find Emily gnawed at him like a constant weight. "Come on, Rex," Taylor whispered. The dog was already in motion again, weaving through the trees, nose to the ground, determined. The air grew thicker as they pressed on, the forest closing in around them. Taylor's mind was spinning. He had to catch up. Emily's life depended on it. And then, Rex halted again. His nose twitched, and Taylor saw it, an unmistakable trace of dark purple fabric on the ground. Emily's scarf. Taylor's stomach twisted. This was no longer just a search. This was a countdown. Rex inhaled deeply, his nostrils flaring, and then he bolted forward, pulling Taylor behind him. The trail was growing fainter, but Rex was relentless, pushing through the thickening underbrush. Night was beginning to fall, and with the darkness came a growing sense of urgency. The woods felt larger, deeper, almost infinite in their isolation. Every step was another moment Emily was trapped, possibly alone, vulnerable. As the minutes dragged on, the sound of their steps was the only thing breaking the silence, each footfall a reminder of how little time they had left. Rex led the way, undeterred by the fading trail. Taylor kept his grip steady, but his mind raced. Mark was still out there, closer than ever, and they were losing daylight. The air thickened, suffocating in its stillness. Taylor's flashlight flickered as he switched it on, its weak beam cutting through the growing darkness. The woods around them seemed to press in, the trees bending in a way that made everything feel unnervingly close. And still no sign of Mark. The silence was almost unbearable. Suddenly, Rex stopped again, his ears twitching as his head turned sharply to the left. Taylor's muscles tensed, his senses on high alert. Somewhere in the distance, a crackling noise echoed, branches breaking, footsteps moving deliberately. Slowly. Mark, Taylor breathed, his voice just audible, like a tight thread between them and the approaching danger. He motioned for Rex to stay low, his tone tight with urgency. Every shift of the trees above seemed louder now, and the rustling of the leaves beneath their feet echoed in the stillness. The weight of the night pressed closer, the forest becoming an oppressive blanket that held them in its grip. Every sound, every movement felt like a threat. The air was damp and heavy, thick with the scent of wet pine and the rich smell of earth, mixing with the faint acrid tang of metal. It was as though the land itself could sense the tension hanging in the air, as if it too waited, frozen in place, for the storm to break. Taylor's heart beat with a quickened rhythm that wasn't just from the chase, it was the palpable anticipation of what might come next. They moved forward, as quiet as they could manage, slipping between the gnarled trunks of the trees that formed an endless corridor of shadow. The path they followed was narrow, the underbrush thick with twisted vines and brambles that caught at their legs. A distant rustle startled Taylor, and his eyes darted toward the sound. Nothing, just the wind. But the hairs on his neck stood straight, the hairs of his mind prickling with a sense of wrongness. Rex, unfazed by the changing environment, stayed steady. The dog's breathing was calm, but there was an alertness in his stance that mirrored Taylor's own. They were close now, too close to not be careful. The scent grew more distinct. The earth still carried Mark's smell, but there was something new. The metallic scent of gun oil mingled with the earth, subtle but unmistakable. Taylor's chest tightened. Mark was armed. That fact had always been in the back of his mind, but now it was impossible to ignore. Every step forward was a step closer to the edge of danger. And then, as if the very woods were holding their breath, the clearing appeared. Rex's nose twitched as he halted, his body tight with focus. They were there, the cabin. It looked abandoned from a distance, but the closer they got, the more Taylor noticed the subtle signs of life: footprints pressed into the soft earth, fresh disturbances in the brush, the faint smell of cooking smoke from within. His instincts told him that Mark had to be inside, but there was no way to be sure. Taylor's hand went to his gun. He didn't draw it yet, didn't even unholster it, but the gesture alone was a silent preparation. He was going in, and he had no idea what they would find inside. It was impossible to tell whether they were walking into a breakthrough or yet another carefully laid trap. Rex growled softly under his breath, and Taylor felt the low vibration resonate in his chest. He didn't need to look at the dog to know what it meant. Rex was sensing something he couldn't. Something was wrong here. Taylor shifted his grip on the leash, trying to steady his own nerves as he moved forward. The cabin stood in front of them now, a weather-beaten structure that seemed to bend under the weight of time. Its windows were dark, like empty eyes watching them. A few broken planks and old crates cluttered the small porch, an indication that it had long since been abandoned by any regular occupant. Yet, the faint sound of movement from inside told a different story. The place was far from empty, and the air, now thick with anticipation, felt like it might crack at any moment. They moved closer. Each step felt heavier now. The cabin's dark silhouette against the deepening sky seemed to grow larger, the trees around it pressing in like silent sentinels. A breeze stirred the branches above, carrying with it the distant sound of something shifting inside the cabin, footsteps slow and deliberate. And then a quiet click, the unmistakable sound of a lock turning. Taylor stopped, his pulse quickening. Mark was there. He could feel it, the weight of the situation heavy in his gut. He motioned to Rex, who was now crouching low, his eyes never leaving the cabin. The dog's body quivered slightly, whether from the tension of the moment or an instinctual awareness of the danger inside. Taylor couldn't tell, but he trusted Rex. More than anything, he trusted that dog's ability to sense what was coming. The silence stretched out, taut like a wire about to snap. Then, the silence shattered. A gunshot rang out. The sound was deafening in the stillness, and for a brief, heart-stopping moment, Taylor thought it was directed at them. But it wasn't. The bullet had flown past, the report still ringing in the air like the scream of a thunderclap. It missed its target, Emily, but the warning was unmistakable. The hair on the back of Taylor's neck stood on end, and his grip tightened around the leash. He wanted to move, to burst forward, but every muscle in his body screamed for control. If they went in now, there was no telling what might happen. Mark was panicking, his mind unraveling, and there was no way of knowing what he might do next. "Stay still," Taylor ordered quietly, voice low, as Rex's body quivered, the dog's instincts screaming for action. For a split second, the air held its breath. Then, Rex snapped the silence with a sudden burst of motion. Without warning, the dog surged forward, his teeth flashing in the dim light as he charged toward the cabin. Taylor was already moving with him, instinct taking over. Mark's voice rang out from inside, frantic, wild. "You can't take her. She's mine." Emily's voice, faint but clear through the walls, trembled in contrast. "Mark, listen to me. This isn't you. You don't have to do this." Mark's growl broke off as the door of the cabin burst open. Rex was there, his body flying into the space between them in an instant. Mark's wild eyes met Taylor's for the briefest moment before the gun discharged again, but the shot went wide, a single crack through the night. Rex launched himself at Mark, knocking him to the ground. The weapon slipped from Mark's hand as he hit the earth, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Rex didn't hesitate, his mouth clamped down on Mark's arm, holding him in place. Taylor was already on top of them, pulling Mark away from Emily, who was huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with fear. Taylor's voice was sharp. "Stay down. Don't move." Mark, squirming beneath Rex's grip, laughed, a low, crazy sound that sent a chill through the clearing. "You think you've won," he hissed. "You can't stop me." But it was over. Mark's delusions had run their course. Taylor cuffed him, his movements swift but careful, the finality of the act settling into the air around them like the last of the night's chill. The faint scent of gunpowder clung to the air, a reminder of the chaos just moments before. The last remnants of smoke lingered like a ghost in the corner of Taylor's senses. His eyes, scanning the scene, missed nothing: the shattered doorframe, the upturned furniture inside, the broken remains of what had once been a home. Yet despite the wreckage, there was an undeniable stillness now. Mark, no longer a threat, lay crumpled against the ground, his face twisted with frustration, but his body unmoving under Rex's unwavering restraint. Emily stood to the side, silent, almost invisible in the shadows that stretched across the floor. Her hands, though free, still seemed bound by invisible chains. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, her face pale as if the energy had been drained from her, leaving only a hollow shell behind. Taylor wanted to say something, to offer comfort, but the words felt inadequate, hollow. Instead, he just stood there, giving her the time she needed to breathe, to reclaim herself. The police official arrived, and Mark was taken into custody. The air, thick with the aftermath of his madness, cleared when he was loaded into the squad car, the heavy thud of the door slamming shut almost sounding like the final punctuation mark to a long and twisted sentence. Taylor turned back to Emily, her gaze still fixed on the space Mark had occupied. He took a step toward her, and for the first time, she met his eyes. Her expression was unreadable, her lips pressed together in a thin line. It was clear that no amount of physical distance from Mark would erase what had happened in that room. Rex, ever watchful, stand by his side, his steady gaze keeping the world at bay. Together, they did it again for what they were known for,